Welcome back. Tonight we return to the beginning of everything, to a time before temples, before prayers, before the gods had names we remember. Tonight we ask a question that echoes through 3,000 years of human wonder. What kind of son must you be to overthrow your own father and reshape the world? Let me take you there. Close your eyes and come with me now to the island of Crete, to a time when the earth itself was younger, when mountains still grew and the seas had not yet found their final shores. Picture Mount Ida, rising from the heart of the island, its slopes thick with cypress and pine. The air here smells of wild thyme and sun-warmed stone. Bees move through the flowering herbs. Somewhere high on the mountain, hidden among the rocks, there is a cave. Its entrance is narrow, almost hidden by ivy and the twisted roots of an ancient olive tree. Inside, the darkness is cool and deep. Water drips somewhere in the chambers beyond, a patient rhythm that has counted the years since stone was new. This is the Dictaean cave. And in this cave, in absolute secrecy, a child is crying. Not the cry of hunger or cold, but the lusty, demanding cry of an infant who does not yet know he will become Zeus, who does not yet know he will be king of gods and men, who knows only the darkness of the cave, the warmth of the arms that hold him, and the sweet milk of the goat Amalthea who nurses him as tenderly as any mother. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Every story has a beginning, and this one begins not with birth but with fear, with a father who learned to devour his own children rather than lose his throne. Let me tell you about Cronus. Cronus was king of the Titans, those first gods who ruled before the Olympians. He was lord of time itself, master of the golden age, when men lived without toil, and the earth gave forth her bounty freely. Cronus had won his throne through violence. He had overthrown his own father, Ouranos, the sky, castrating him with a great sickle of adamant and casting him down. For this, Cronus became supreme among the Titans. He took Rhea as his wife, his sister, beautiful Rhea of the flowing hair, Rhea who would become the mother of gods. But Cronus had heard a prophecy. His parents, Gaia the earth and the broken Ouranos, had whispered it to him in tones of grim satisfaction. You who overthrew your father will yourself be overthrown by your own son. The cycle will continue. You will know the same fate you delivered. And Cronus, for all his power, was afraid. So when Rhea bore him children, Cronus found a solution, a terrible solution. As each child was born, as Rhea presented each infant to her husband, Cronus opened his great jaws and swallowed the child whole. Down into the darkness of his immortal body they went, still alive, still aware, trapped in an eternal prison of flesh and divine power. First went Hestia, gentle goddess of the hearth, then Demeter who would have blessed the harvest, then Hera, imperious even as an infant, then dark Hades and Poseidon of the sea-green eyes. One by one Cronus consumed them. One by one Rhea's arms were left empty. The pain of a mother who loses a child is beyond measure, but the pain of a mother who loses five, who must hand each newborn to a father she knows will devour it, who must pretend to accept this horror as natural, as necessary. Can you imagine it? The grief became part of her, heavy as stone, deep as the roots of the mountains. But Rhea was not only a mother, she was also a Titan, daughter of Earth itself. And when she felt the sixth child quickening in her womb, she knew she would not let this one go. This one she would save, even if it meant defying the king of the cosmos, even if it meant war. She went to her mother, to Gaia, to the earth that knows all secrets and holds all things in patience. Together, the mother and the grandmother made a plan. When the time came for the birth, Rhea did not go to the palace of Cronus on Mount Othrys. Instead, in the deep of night, she traveled to Crete, to the hidden cave on Mount Ida, and there, with only the nymphs to attend her, she gave birth to a son. And if you could have been there in that moment, you would have seen the child's eyes open in the firelight. You would have seen them flash, not with the helplessness of infancy, but with something else. Some spark that spoke of thunder not yet born, of power waiting for its hour. The nymphs washed him. Amalthea the goat gave him milk, and Rhea, holding her son for the only time, whispered to him. I do not know what she said. Perhaps she told him his name. Perhaps she told him of his brothers and sisters trapped in the darkness of their father's belly. Perhaps she simply said, "Live, live and remember, live, and when you are strong enough, set them free." Then she wrapped a stone in swaddling clothes, a large stone, roughly the size and weight of an infant. She wrapped it carefully and she returned to Cronus. He was waiting. "Give me the child," he said, and her face a mask, presented him with the bundle. Cronus, in his arrogance, in his certainty that no one would dare defy him, did not even look. He simply opened his mouth and swallowed the stone whole, swallowing it down to join his other children in the dark. And so Zeus lived. The child grew in the cave, far from his father's eye. The nymphs raised him. They danced for him and sang to him. Bees brought him honey from the mountain flowers, sweet and golden. When he cried, young warriors called the Curetes would clash their spears against their shields, making such a clamor that no one beyond the mountain would hear an infant's voice. Every day he grew stronger. Every day the spark in his eyes burned brighter. He learned the ways of the world from those who tended him. He learned kindness from the nymphs, who asked nothing but gave everything. He learned the sweetness of honey, the coolness of spring water, the way sunlight feels on skin that has known only cave shadow. And perhaps in those early years he learned something his father had never known. He learned that power is not only about dominion, that strength is not only about control, that a king might rule by something other than fear. Years passed. On Crete they count time differently. The boy became a youth. The youth became a man. And Zeus, hidden son of began to understand who he was and what he had to do. He sought counsel. Some say he went to Medes, the Oceanid, whose name means wisdom and cunning. Medes, who could take any shape, who knew the secret properties of every herb and stone. She prepared for him a potion, a mixture that would cause even an immortal to heave up what he had swallowed. Other versions say it was Gaia herself who provided the means, but the method matters less than the moment. Zeus knew it was time to face his father, time to free his siblings, time to challenge the king of the Titans. Imagine him, standing at the entrance to the cave that had been his whole world, looking out over Crete, over the wine-dark sea, toward distant Mount Overthrew where Cronus ruled in blind confidence. Zeus was young, untried in battle, unknown to the cosmos. But he carried within him the inevitability of prophecy and the fierce love of a mother who had risked everything to give him life. He descended the mountain. He crossed the sea. And through cunning, through the help of Medes, he entered the hall of Cronus disguised as a cupbearer, just another servant bringing wine to the king. The great hall was vast. Columns rose like trees. The Titans feasted there, immortal and powerful, never imagining that their reign was about to end. Cronus sat on his throne, massive and terrible, lord of all he surveyed. And Zeus, in his disguise, approached with a cup. The king drank, and immediately the potion did its work. Cronus felt his stomach convulse. He doubled over, and from his mouth came not food but gods. First the stone had wrapped in swaddling clothes, tumbling out onto the floor. Then Poseidon, gasping, alive, eyes wild with years of imprisonment. Then Hades, grim and silent. Then Hera, Demeter, and Hestia, each emerging into the light after an eternity of darkness. They stood there, the swallowed gods, fully grown. For immortals do not die, even in the belly of their father. They had waited conscious through all the long years, and now they were free. Cronus looked at them, looked at Zeus, and understood. The prophecy had come true. What followed was a war that shook the foundations of the world. The Titanomachy, they called it, the War of the Titans. On one side, Cronus and most of the Titans, fighting to preserve their rule. On the other, Zeus and his siblings, the new gods, fighting for freedom and for a new order. For 10 years, the battle raged. The earth trembled with it. Mountains crumbled. Seas boiled. The sky itself seemed to crack with the force of divine powers unleashed. Cronus wielded his great sickle, the same weapon with which he had overthrown our Uranos. But Zeus had something his father lacked. He had allies who fought not from fear but from choice. He had siblings who remembered their imprisonment and fought with the fury of the unjustly bound. And he had thunder, deep in the earth, Beneath even the foundations of the world, there were three beings imprisoned by Cronus long ago: the Cyclopes, one-eyed smiths of divine craft, and the Hecatoncheires, the hundred-handed giants of unstoppable strength. Cronus had feared them and locked them away in Tartarus, the deepest pit. But Zeus descended into that darkness and freed them, just as he had been freed. And in gratitude, the Cyclopes forged for him weapons no god had ever wielded. For Zeus, the thunderbolt, crackling with the fire of the sky itself. For Poseidon, a trident that could shake the earth. For Hades, a helm of invisibility, shadow made solid. Armed with these, the tide of war turned. The final battle took place on the plains before Mount Othrys. The air was thick with ash and the smell of scorched stone. Cronus and Zeus faced each other, father and son, old king and new, and Zeus raised the thunderbolt. The flash, when it came, lit the world from edge to edge. The sound was not merely noise, but a fundamental restructuring of reality, a cosmic declaration that the age of the Titans was ending. The bolt struck true. Cronus fell, and with him fell the old order, the reign of fear and devoured children, the time of the sickle and the secret prophecy. The Titans who had fought against Zeus were cast down into Tartarus, deep beneath the earth, imprisoned behind gates of bronze. The hundred-handed giants stood guard, ensuring they would never rise again. But Zeus was not merely cruel. Those Titans who had remained neutral or aided him were allowed to keep their honors. Atlas, who had fought against Zeus, was given a special punishment: to hold up the sky itself, forever bearing the weight of the heavens on his shoulders. And Zeus and his siblings stood victorious. They drew lots to divide the cosmos among them. Zeus received the sky and the upper world. Poseidon took the seas. Hades accepted the underworld, the realm of the dead. The goddesses took their own domains: Hestia the hearth, Demeter the harvest, Hera the marriage bed and the role of queen. Together they ascended a new mountain, not Othrys, seat of the Titans, but Olympus, tallest peak in Greece, its summit lost in clouds, its slopes home to eagles and the pure light of the upper air. Here they built their palaces. Here they established the order that would govern gods and mortals for ages to come. Zeus became the king of gods, the cloud-gatherer, the father of gods and men. From his throne on Olympus, he would dispense justice, hurl thunderbolts, and father countless children who would become heroes and demigods, threads in the great tapestry of myth. But he never forgot the cave on Crete, never forgot Amalthea and the nymphs, never forgot the stone his mother had used to save him, which he set up at Delphi as a sacred object, anointed with oil, a reminder of the cunning and sacrifice that had given birth to the Olympian age. And what of her? Her children were free. Her husband was overthrown. She had done what no mother before her had dared, and the world was changed because of it. Some say she withdrew to Crete, to the mountains she loved. Some say she wanders still, a presence in wild places, honored by those who know that the fiercest love is a mother's love, and that even the King of Heaven owes his throne to the courage of the one who refused to let him die. The gods on Olympus would have their own stories, their own loves and wars and transformations. But it all began here, in a cave on Crete, with a hidden birth and a mother's desperate plan. It began with Zeus, the child who survived because someone dared to hope that the future could be different from the past. The myths tell us that Zeus was not a perfect king. He could be wrathful, lustful, capricious. But he was also the god of justice, of oaths, of the sacred bond between host and guest. He overthrew a father who devoured his children and established a rule where gods could walk in the light, where heroes could be born, where mortals could look to the sky and see not hunger but majesty. In the end, the story of Zeus and the birth of Olympus is a story about change, about the courage it takes to break a cycle of violence, about the power of cunning and patience over brute force, about how the world is shaped not only by the strong but by those who are willing to protect the vulnerable, even at great cost. And perhaps in our own way, we carry forward that same question Zeus once faced in the cave on Mount Ida. When we inherit a world shaped by fear and violence, do we simply accept it? Or do we, like the hidden child who became king of heaven, dare to imagine something different, dare to fight for it, dare to hope that even the mightiest tyranny can fall if we have the courage to stand? These are questions worth carrying into sleep, into dreams, into the quiet hours when the mind wanders among old stones and ancient stories. Thank you for joining me tonight. Next time, we'll continue our journey through the age of myth. We'll meet Prometheus, the titan who loved mortals more than he feared Zeus, who stole fire from heaven and paid a terrible price. Until then, rest well. Let the old stories work in you. And remember that even gods were once children, hidden away, waiting for their moment to rise. Sleep well.